The salvage bay of Station Prometheus hummed with the constant vibration of recycling processors, a mechanical heartbeat that had become Zara Voss's lullaby over the past 3 years. She maneuvered her work exosuit through the maze of twisted metal and broken dreams that passed for inventory, her practiced eye cataloging potential value in what others saw as worthless debris. The latest haul from the Kepler system promised interesting finds wreckage from a species she'd never encountered before. Zara's boots magnetized to the deck plating as she approached the largest piece, a teardrop-shaped vessel it had seen. Better millennia. Its biometallic hull shimmered with an opalescent quality that suggested advanced manufacturing, though significant damage had cracked it open like an egg. Emergency lights still pulsed weakly inside, indicating some form of life support remained active. Well, that's new, she muttered, checking her scanner readings. The energy signature was unlike anything in her database, organic in nature, but clearly technological. As she moved closer, movement caught her eye through the breach in the hull. Something was alive in there. Protocol demanded she report the finding immediately. Let the xenobiology team handle first contact procedures. But protocols had never stopped Zara before, and they wouldn't start now. She activated her suit's translation matrix and carefully squeezed through the hull breach. The interior was breathtaking. Curved walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to respond to her presence, creating a gentle light show in tone. Blues and purples. The air, according to her sensors, was breathable for humans, a remarkable coincidence that suggested either incredible luck or sophisticated environmental adaptation. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing strangely in the organic corridors. "Is anyone there?" A sound reached her ears, part mechanical whir, part organic clicking. Following it deeper into the vessel, Zara found herself in what appeared to be a control chamber. Biomechanical interfaces grew from the walls like flowering coral, their surfaces dark and inactive. In the center of the room, trapped beneath a collapsed support beam, was a being unlike anything she'd ever seen. The creature was roughly humanoid, but built close to the ground, with 4 powerful arms and a serpentine lower body that ended in specialized gripping appendages. Its skin was a deep indigo that shifted to silver along ridged patterns, and multiple eyes of varying sizes dotted its elongated skull. Most striking was the elaborate harness system that seemed to be both clothing and life support, now sparking with damaged electronics. "Easy there," Zara said, raising her hands as the being's many eyes focused on her with startling intelligence. "I'm not going to hurt you. Let me help." The creature spoke, its voice a musical cascade of tones that her translator struggled to parse. After a moment, words formed in her helmet display. Human ... Carius. Danger to approach damaged systems. "Yeah, well, I've made a career out of dangerous systems," Zara replied, moving carefully toward the trapped being. The support beam was heavy, but not impossibly so, for her exosuit's servo-assisted strength. "What's your name?" "Keth Nalani of the Seeking Current," came the translated response. "You risk contamination. Structural integrity compromised ... "Nice to meet you, Keth. I'm Zara, and structural integrity is my specialty." She positioned herself at the optimal leverage point on the beam. "This might hurt a bit, but I'm going to lift this off you. Ready?" Keth's response was a complex harmony of tones that the translator interpreted as resigned agreement. Zara engaged, her suit's full power, hydraulics whining as she slowly lifted the beam. Keth immediately began to slide free, moving with surprising grace despite his injuries. Once clear, Keth attempted to rise but collapsed, his harness system sparking dangerously. Up close, Zara could see the intricate network of biomechanical interfaces that seemed to be integral to his mobility. Several key components were clearly damaged, leaving him effectively paralyzed. "Your people," she said, kneeling beside him. You need these systems to move? Thylorians are bound to surface without assistance. Keth's translated words carried deep frustration. My harness ... navigation systems. Flight capability. All damaged beyond field repair ... flight capability? Zara's engineer's mind immediately engaged. You can fly with this harness? Could. Fly, Keth corrected, his multitude of eyes dimming with what appeared to be despair. My people crawl upon ground without technology. Shameful existence. Better to die with dignity than return helpless. Hey, none of that talk, Zara said firmly. I've been fixing impossible things since I was old enough to hold a plasma torch. Let me take a look at your harness. Keth remained still as Zara examined the damaged systems. The technology was fascinating, a hybrid of biological neural interfaces and mechanical propulsion that was far more advanced than anything she'd encountered. The damage was extensive, but not irreparable, assuming she could figure out how the biomechanical components interacted. This is incredible work, she murmured, her fingers tracing the elegant curves of the harness. The neural integration. Alone ... How do you interface with it? Touch ... here. Keth guided her hand to a series of contact points along his neck ridges. The moment her fingers made contact, information flooded her mind, not thoughts exactly, but impressions of soaring through space, of freedom and joy in three-dimensional movement that made her human perspective seem suddenly limited. Oh, she breathed, the sensation overwhelming. I can feel. You really can fly. Could, Keth repeated, but something in his translated tone had changed. You ... experienced the harness memory ... How is this possible? Thylorian neural systems are incompatible with other species. Zara pulled her hand back, mind reeling from the contact. I don't know, but I felt it. The freedom, the joy of flight. Keth, I have to help you repair this. I can't let you go back to crawling when you're meant to soar. For the first time since she'd found him, Keth's eyes brightened. You would do this? For one not of your kind? I'd do it for anyone, Zara said, then paused, meeting his alien gaze. But especially for you. There's something about you, about this. I can't explain it, but I feel like this meeting wasn't an accident. Keth was quiet for a long moment, his eyes studying her face with an intensity that made her suddenly self-conscious. The seeking current brought me to you, he said finally. Perhaps it knew what I could not, that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected sources. As Zara began gathering the tools she'd need to attempt the repairs, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken a dramatic turn. The touch of Keth's harness had shown her possibilities she'd never imagined, and the gratitude in his alien eyes stirred something in her chest she hadn't felt in years. This was more than just another salvage job. This was the beginning of something extraordinary. The underground research facility beneath New Geneva's third dome buzzed with the quiet intensity of focused minds at work. Marcus Reed pushed his hair back from his forehead, leaving a streak of synthetic lubricant across his brow as he stared at the holographic display floating above his workbench. The biomechanical integration patterns made his head spin, even after 6 months of studying them. Still fighting with the neural pathway mappings? The melodic voice behind him carried a hint of amusement that he'd grown to cherish over there. Weeks of collaboration. Marcus turned to find Tira Salenthia gracefully maneuvering her mobility platform into the workshop. Unlike the damaged harness systems he'd seen in the initial reports, hers was a work of art-flowing lines of biometal that seemed to grow from her indigo skin, supporting her serpentine lower body while leaving her forearms free for delicate work. She'd been one of the few Thylorians willing to work directly with human researchers, despite the skepticism of both species. Fighting and losing, Marcus admitted, gesturing to the tangle of neural pathways displayed in the hologram. I can map the mechanical systems all day, but the bioneural interfaces, it's like trying to understand music by studying the physics of sound waves. Tira's platform hummed closer, bringing with it the subtle scent of ozone and something floral that Marcus had never quite been able to identify. Her multiple eyes, arranged in fascinating asymmetrical patterns across her elongated skull, focused on the display with an intelligence that still took his breath away. "Perhaps," she said, her voice generating the harmonics that his translator converted to words, "you are approaching this from the wrong angle. You think of the harness as a tool to be controlled, but for us, it becomes part of who we are." "Explain that to me," Marcus said, genuinely curious. Over their time working together, he'd discovered that Tira had a way of looking at problems that consistently surprised him. Her perspective was so fundamentally different from his human viewpoint that it often revealed solutions he would never have considered. Instead of answering directly, Tira moved her platform closer to his workstation. "May I?" she asked, indicating the neural interface crown he'd been developing, his attempt to create a bridge between human technology and Phylorian biomechanics. Marcus nodded, watching as Tira's slender fingers traced the device's contours. Where she touched, the biomechanical components seemed to respond, surfaces shifting subtly as if recognizing her presence. It was a phenomenon he documented, but never fully understood. "When we are young," Tira said, her attention split between the device and Marcus's face. "Before we receive our first harness, we dream of flying. Not as you humans might dream of soaring through your skies, but of true three-dimensional freedom. The harness doesn't give us flight, it awakens the flight that already exists within us." As she spoke, Marcus found himself drawn closer, fascinated by the play of bioluminescent patterns across her skin. When Tira was excited or focused, the patterns became more pronounced, creating a light show that was both beautiful and deeply alien. He'd begun to recognize different patterns. Curiosity was a spiral of blue-white dots along her neck ridges, while concentration created flowing lines of purple across her forehead. "So the neural interface isn't about controlling the harness," Marcus said, understanding beginning to dawn. "It's about the harness recognizing and amplifying something that's already part of your neurological makeup." "Exactly." Tira's eyes brightened, and the bioluminescent patterns shifted to what Marcus had learned indicated pleasure and approval. "Your technology tries to impose control from the outside. Ours seeks harmony from within." Marcus leaned over the workbench, accidentally brushing Tira's shoulder as he reached for a component. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, not electrical, but something deeper. Tira's skin was warm and surprisingly soft, with a texture like fine silk over firm muscle. He started to pull away, but Tira's hand caught his wrist gently. "You felt something," she said, and it wasn't a question. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin had shifted to something Marcus had never seen before, a slow pulse of warm gold that seemed to emanate from where they touched. "Ah, yes," Marcus admitted, his voice hoarser than he'd intended. "What was that?" "Touch learning," Tira said, her multiple eyes studying his face with an intensity that made him suddenly aware of every detail of her alien features. "It is how we share knowledge, experiences, and emotions. I did not expect it to work with a human." The workshop suddenly felt much smaller. Marcus was acutely aware of Tira's proximity, of the way her breathing created subtle harmonics, of how the light from her skin painted everything in warm, shifting colors. "What did you what did I experience?" "My memories of first flight," Tira said softly. "The moment when the harness and I became one, when the boundary between self and system dissolved into pure joy." Marcus closed his eyes, trying to process the lingering sensations. He could still feel echoes of that moment, the incredible rush of three-dimensional freedom, the sensation of space folding around him in response to thought rather than muscle. The pure ecstasy of movement unlimited by gravity or friction. That was? He began, then stopped, lacking words adequate to describe the experience. Now you understand, Tira said, her hand still resting on his wrist. The harness is not a tool. It is a partner, a completion of something that was always meant to be whole. Marcus opened his eyes to find Tira watching him with an expression. He couldn't quite read. The golden patterns on her skin had intensified, creating an almost hypnotic display of shifting light. Tira, what's happening between us? She was quiet for a long moment, her free hands absently adjusting components. On the workbench. I do not know, she admitted. Touch learning is intimate among my people. It is not something we share casually, and certainly never with another species. Yet with you. It feels natural, Marcus finished. Like we're meant to work together. More than work together, Tira said, her voice dropping to harmonics that his translator struggled to interpret. The golden patterns on her skin pulsed brighter. Marcus, I must tell you something. The research committee. They do not know the true reason I volunteered for this project. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. What do you mean? There have been rumors ... among my people. Stories of Thylorians who have worked closely with humans, who have formed bonds that transcend species. Tira's eyes met his directly. I thought such stories were wishful thinking, desperate fantasies of those who had lost hope of ever truly connecting with another being. And now? Tira's platform moved closer, bringing her within arm's reach. Now I begin to understand that some boundaries exist only in our minds. Her hand moved from his wrist to his face, fingers tracing his jawline with surprising gentleness. The touch learning, it works both ways, Marcus. I felt your emotions as well, your fascination, your dedication, your loneliness. The workshop's ambient lighting seemed dim compared to the warm glow emanating from Tira's skin. Marcus found himself leaning into her touch, his human perspective expanding to accommodate possibilities he'd never considered. This is complicated, he said, though he made no move to pull away. The most worthwhile things usually are, Tira replied, her bioluminescent patterns now creating complex, beautiful designs across her skin. The question is, are you willing to explore where this might lead? Marcus looked into her multiple eyes, each reflecting a different angle of the workshop's lights, and realized that his answer had been forming since the moment they'd first touched. I've spent my career pushing the boundaries of what's possible, he said. I'm not about to stop now. Tira's response was a harmony of tones that needed no translation, pure joy, tinged with anticipation and something that might have been love. As she leaned closer, Marcus understood that they were about to embark on something far more significant than technological innovation. They were about to discover what it meant to fly together. The asteroid mining station, Meridian's Edge, drifted in the shadow of the gas giant Horus, its rotating habitat rings spinning slowly against a backdrop of swirling storm clouds. Alina Santos rubbed her tired eyes and pushed back from her workstation. The neural interface schematics blurring together after 14 straight hours of analysis. The coffee had stopped working 3 hours ago, but the breakthrough felt tantalizingly close. You should rest, a familiar voice said from the laboratory's entrance. Elena turned to see Jorik Thane maneuvering his mobility crawler through the doorway, the machine's 8 articulated legs carrying him with fluid grace, despite his obvious fatigue. Unlike the elegant harnesses she'd seen in the research footage from other facilities, Jorik's system was purely mechanical a necessity after the neural trauma that had left him unable to interface with biomechanical systems. His species' natural ability to bond with their flight harnesses had been damaged in the mining accident that brought him to Meridian's Edge, leaving him trapped in what he called the crawling darkness. I could say the same to you, Elena replied, noting the exhaustion in his 4 eyes. Jorik's copper-colored skin had lost some of its natural luminescence, and the intricate tattoos that marked his family lineage seemed faded. When's the last time you actually slept? Sleep brings dreams. Of flying, Jorik said, his translated voice carrying a bitterness Elena had grown to hate. I prefer consciousness to such torments. Elena stood and moved closer to his crawler, her heart aching for the pain she saw in his expression. Over the past month of working together, she'd watched Jorik struggle with a depression that went beyond mere physical limitation. For a Thyllurian, losing the ability to fly was losing part of their essential identity. Jorik, I think I've found something, she said, pulling up a holographic display of neural pathway mappings. Look at this. The damage to your bioneural centers isn't as complete as we thought. There are dormant pathways, neural clusters that could potentially be reactivated. Jorik's crawler moved closer, his multiple eyes focusing on the display. With interest, despite himself. The medical scanner showed total neural cascade failure. Recovery was deemed impossible. Medical scanners were looking for normal Thyllurian neural patterns, Elena said, her excitement building. But what if we approached this differently? What if we created a hybrid system that works around the damaged areas? She manipulated the hologram, highlighting specific neural clusters. These pathways are intact, but isolated from your primary neural matrix. If we could bridge them with artificial connections, nano-neural threads, that would integrate with human interface technology. You're suggesting a fusion system, Jorik said, his voice carrying the first note of hope Elena had heard from him in weeks. Thyllurian bioneural processing combined with human mechanical control systems. Exactly. Elena's hands moved through the hologram, sketching possible connections. It would be unlike anything either species has developed. Part biological harmony, part technological precision. Jorik's crawler brought him close enough that Elena could see the complex patterns of his tattoos more clearly. They told stories. She'd learned family history, personal achievements, dreams for the future. The ones around his shoulders depicted soaring figures that made her chest tighten with sympathy. The risk, Jorik said quietly, would be enormous. If the integration failed, the neural feedback could cause permanent damage to the areas that are still functional. I know, Elena said, meeting his gaze directly. I wouldn't suggest this if I wasn't confident in the approach. But Jorik, you have to understand watching you trapped in that crawler is killing me. Not as a researcher, but as someone who cares about you. The admission hung in the air between them. Jorik's copper skin shifted through several color variations: surprise, confusion, and something that might have been reciprocal affection. Elena, he said carefully, your emotional investment in this project, it could compromise your scientific objectivity. My emotional investment is what's driving me to find solutions no one else has considered. Elena replied, moving closer to his crawler. Jorik, these past weeks working with you, I've never felt more focused, more motivated. You inspire me. Jorik's 4 eyes studied her face with an intensity that made Elena suddenly self-conscious. Among my people, he said slowly, there are stories of bonds that transcend physical form. Connections that exist in the realm of thought and feeling rather than mere biology. What kind of stories? Legends of Thyllurians who found their flight partner not in the sky, but in another being. Someone whose presence allowed them to soar even when their bodies remained earthbound. Jorik's translator struggled with the emotional undertones of his words. I thought such stories were merely comfort tales for the disabled and the lost. Elena felt her heart rate increase. And now? Now, I find myself wondering if perhaps the universe has a sense of irony. Jorik's crawler positioned itself so they were at eye level. The accident that took my flight brought me to you. The neural damage that ended my old life maybe creating the possibility of something entirely new. Elena reached out hesitantly, her fingers touching one of Jorik's hands where it rested on the crawler's control surface. His skin was warm and slightly textured, with a vitality that surprised her. The neural bridge I'm proposing. It would require constant calibration, ongoing adjustment. We'd have to work together indefinitely. A partnership, Jorik said, his color patterns shifting to warm golds and purples. More than that, Elena said, surprised by her own boldness. Jorik, I've analyzed dozens of neural patterns, but yours is different. There's something about your brain structure that resonates with mine. When I work on your schematics, it's like I can almost feel what you're feeling. The crawler's sensors detect elevated biometric readings from you when we work in close proximity, Jorik admitted. I assumed it was stress from the complexity of the project. Not stress, Elena sighed, her thumb tracing patterns on his hand. Connection. Jorik, I think we might be compatible on levels we don't fully understand yet. The laboratory fell quiet, except for the hum of equipment and the distant vibration of the station's rotation. Jorik's color patterns had settled into a steady, warm glow that Elena found unexpectedly beautiful. A neural bridge, he said finally, would link our minds during flight. My Thylorian spatial awareness combined with your human analytical processing. We would share the experience directly. Shared consciousness, Elena breathed, the implications sending shivers through her. Jorik, we'd be pioneering something completely unprecedented. And dangerous, he added, but his tone suggested the danger only made the prospect more appealing. If the integration works, we'd be bound together in ways neither species has ever experienced. Elena looked into his 4 eyes, each reflecting a different aspect of her face, and realized they'd moved far beyond mere professional collaboration. Are you willing to try? Jorik's response was a harmony of tones that needed no translation determination, mixed with affection and perhaps love. With you, Elena Santos, I am willing to attempt the impossible. As Elena began the final preparations for the neural bridge procedure, she understood that they were about to cross a threshold from which there would be no return. Success would mean not only giving Jorik back his flight, but creating a bond between them that would redefine what it meant to soar together across the stars. The future stretched before them, full of unknowns and infinite possibilities, waiting for them to take wing. 3 days later, Helena Santos and Jorik Thane achieved the impossible, the first successful human Thylorian neural bridge. As Jorik's new hybrid harness carried them both into the asteroid field surrounding Meridian's edge, their minds linked in perfect harmony. They realized they had discovered something far more precious than flight. They had found their way to each other, and in doing so, opened a new chapter in the relationship between their species. The neural bridge worked flawlessly, allowing Jorik to experience flight again, while giving Elena her first taste of true, 3-dimensional freedom. Together, they soared between the asteroids, 2 minds sharing one incredible experience, proving that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from crossing barriers, but from dissolving them entirely.